The process of photosynthesis is the foundation of nearly all life on Earth. It is the biochemical mechanism by which plants, algae, and some bacteria convert sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water into glucose and oxygen. This process not only sustains the organisms that perform it, but also provides the oxygen that aerobic life depends on. Without photosynthesis, the delicate balance of Earth's biosphere would collapse. But what if, one day, this fundamental process simply stopped working? The first signs of the catastrophe would be subtle. Scientists monitoring atmospheric carbon dioxide levels would notice an unusual spike, as plants worldwide failed to absorb CO2 at their usual rates. Initially, this might be dismissed as an anomaly, a temporary fluctuation in the data. But as days passed, the trend would become undeniable. Carbon dioxide concentrations would rise sharply, while oxygen levels would begin to decline. The implications would be staggering. Within weeks, the effects would become visible to the naked eye. Plants, deprived of their primary energy source, would begin to wither. Crops would fail, forests would turn brown, and grasslands would yellow. The collapse of photosynthesis would trigger a cascading failure in ecosystems. Herbivores, dependent on plants for food, would starve. Carnivores, in turn, would lose their prey. The food chain, built over millions of years of evolution, would unravel at an unprecedented rate. Human civilization, heavily reliant on agriculture, would face immediate famine. Global food reserves would be depleted within months. Governments would scramble to implement rationing systems, but the sheer scale of the crisis would make mitigation nearly impossible. The economic collapse would be swift. Stock markets would crash as supply chains disintegrated. Nations would turn inward, prioritizing survival over cooperation. The world would descend into chaos. But the crisis would not be limited to food. The decline in oxygen production would have dire consequences for all aerobic life. Humans, animals, and even microorganisms would struggle to breathe as atmospheric oxygen levels dropped. The air would become thinner, making physical exertion increasingly difficult. Those with respiratory conditions would be the first to succumb, but eventually, even healthy individuals would suffer. The planet would, in essence, begin to suffocate. Scientists would work frantically to understand the cause of the photosynthetic shutdown. Hypotheses would range from a global pathogen targeting chloroplasts to an unknown cosmic event disrupting the biochemical pathways of plants. Some might speculate that human activity, perhaps an unintended consequence of genetic engineering or industrial pollution, had triggered the collapse. But without a clear cause, solutions would remain elusive. Attempts to artificially produce oxygen on a massive scale would be initiated, but the infrastructure required to sustain billions of people would be beyond current technological capabilities. Greenhouses with artificial lighting might keep some plants alive, but the energy demands would be unsustainable. The world would be forced to confront the reality that without photosynthesis, life, as we know it, could not continue. In the final stages of the crisis, humanity would face an existential choice: adapt or perish. Some might turn to extremophile organisms, those capable of surviving in oxygen-poor environments, for clues on how to modify human biology. Others might seek refuge in underground habitats where oxygen could be artificially maintained. But these efforts would be stopgap measures at best. The long-term survival of complex life on Earth would be in question. The collapse of photosynthesis would serve as a stark reminder of the fragility of life's interconnected systems. It would demonstrate how a single biochemical process, taken for granted for millennia, underpins the very existence of civilization. The event would be a lesson in humility, showing that even the most advanced species are not immune to the whims of nature. In the end, the world would be a shadow of its former self. The once lush landscapes would be barren, the skies would darken with the absence of plant life, and the air would grow stale. The few survivors would live in a world where every breath was a struggle, where the echoes of a thriving biosphere were but a distant memory. The great experiment of life on Earth would have reached its conclusion, not with a bang, but with a slow, suffocating whimper. And yet, in the silence of this new world, there would be a strange beauty. The resilience of life, even in its most diminished forms, would persist. Microbes adapted to anaerobic conditions might thrive, rewriting the rules of survival. The planet would not be dead, only different. And in that difference, there would be a glimmer of hope, a testament to the enduring adaptability of existence itself. But for humanity, the lesson would be clear. The systems that sustain us are not eternal. They are delicate, interconnected, and ultimately finite. The collapse of photosynthesis would be a warning, a reminder that the world as we know it is but one possible configuration of reality. And in the vastness of the cosmos, where countless other possibilities exist, our existence is but a fleeting moment in the grand tapestry of time.